PSL rankings time. Going into week 4. This was a good week. This was a fun week. So last week we had a lot of Pokemon going off. I think this week this was like an all-around effort from a lot of teams. All Pokemon got like their opportunity to shine, and it just wasn't one Pokemon dominating like every game. So in this week, they got the notes here from the man in Vegas. The man in Vegas, he sent me his notes. Now, there has been a lot of tier changes again. I think the rankings are overall throughout the season, they've been pretty solid. Like, there hasn't been too many surprise outcomes, like too many massive upsets. But some teams this week are they're getting the respect that they have earned. Okay, some teams are getting the respect that they have earned. There's been some just good performances for some teams that had like a lot of question marks to start the season, and then a lot of the good teams have done pretty good. And yeah, so let's just go straight into it. So we have one team that has climbed out of the D tier, but these other 4 teams are still in the D tier. There's not too many new things to say about these teams. Nothing that's come out as too surprising from their performance. Nothing that really changes my opinion or the man in Vegas's opinion of these teams. So I don't have much to say. There's nothing really new. I know that one thing to say though, Dallas, the fan favorite Infernape, I believe got traded. So that's interesting. We'll see how that goes. But the fans aren't happy. I don't know how many fans are going to show up to the week 4 game, because Infernape was the favorite Pokemon on the team. Now, C tier. Tennessee moved up, even though they lost. They lost a very important division game against Houston, but I was very impressed. And this team overall, they're 1-2 right now. Their loss last week was a 1-0 loss to one of the best teams in the league. They played really damn good. They played really good. Their first week I was impressed by as well. The second week was a little disappointing, and it kind of made me revert back to my preseason thoughts on the team. But I think this team is definitely not a D tier team. I think the coach for his first season is doing really well with the team that he has, and I was very impressed last week. Atlanta, Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, Chicago, these teams are all in like shambles right now. Whether it's like coaching questions, like the motivation of the coach, or the coach is away in like Chicago's instance at I believe he's at a 3-week spa retreat, getting his like toenails painted and his feet massaged. Instead of doing his battles, I'm not gonna judge. Like, it's important, to look after your feet and all that stuff. But like, I would probably do the battles first. But that's just, I'm not gonna judge too much. He can do it. He's his own man. And then Buffalo, I actually was impressed with Buffalo last week, and I love this team. This team is like really becoming my favorite. Like, incredible team. I love it. I know people hate Storm, but like, I think this team's so fun to watch. I love the coach. I love the team. I really hope they come through with them two big wins and like sneak into the playing game. So it'd be cool. I'd love to see that. Denver, another team that lost that I was impressed by. I was impressed with this loss by Denver against the Rose Raiders. I was disappointed they didn't win. I really wanted them to win, because I really want to see Denver in the playoffs again. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. They did pick up the loss, but I was still impressed by the win. They can still make playoffs if they win their last 2 games. Minnesota and Kansas, just solid wins. They moved them up to the top of the C tier. Hopefully they can repeat it in week 4, but overall, just solid wins. Minnesota though, I have my eye on Minnesota though. I think they might be sneaky good, but I'm not too sure yet, because the opponents they have played are not like the highest tiered teams. So they don't have any like big wins. That's why they're still in C tier, but I do have my eye on them. So B- tier. I think the only change in this tier was Chicago going down. I think that was the only change in C tier. So let's start with Green Bay. So Green Bay had a win. It was a decent win, but there were a lot of players in that game that kept Detroit in it and could have given Detroit the win. But we love the Specs. I believe it was Specs King Gambit. That was That was like the set of the year so far. For me, that's by far the set of the year. That's why we fucking love this league. That's the shit that this league was built on. Like the Thunder Punch Blissys, the Choice Specs King Gambit. That's the stuff that I want to see. I don't care if you know, just for that set. I probably should put this team in S tier for the week just for that set, because that's the stuff that I want to see. I don't want to see like your normal standard like good sets. I want to see the Specs King Gambit shit. That's what I want to see. New York, solid week, I think. Let me just check real quick. Yeah, so they did get the 1-0 victory against Buffalo. So I watched this game, and they did very well to come out with the victory in this game, because Buffalo just set up with everything, and like how we broke through this team was very impressive, because I loved how Buffalo played. So overall, it was a solid win. It was a fucking awesome divisional rivalry game. One of the games of the week for me. Baltimore. So Baltimore got the loss to their division rival Cincinnati, who was just being insane this season. Like, he was insane last season. He's in the first seed right now, so we'll get to Cincinnati in a minute, but tough loss for Baltimore. And then Seattle, they got their win over the D-tier team in Rampados, but same with all these B- teams. I didn't really learn anything that I didn't already know, or my impressions, or so the man in Vegas, his impressions of the team didn't really change based on their week 3 performance. B tier. B tier is looking pretty small. It's looking pretty small compared to last week. You know, so a lot of teams are missing here right now. And they're not in B-, so a lot of teams have moved up to A tier. A lot of teams have like really proven themselves, but let's go straight into B tier. I'm going to start with Carolina, because Carolina was the team that I hyped up. There was 2 teams that I really called this season to do good. One was Carolina, just because I really liked the team, and the other one was Wild Chargers. It was based off nothing. I pretty much called them out before the draft, or even knew what their team was. I just had a gut feeling that this was the LA Wild Chargers year this year. They are leading the division right now, which is good. So that's awesome. But Carolina, they played the New Orleans Saints, I believe. Pretty sure. This was one of the games where it was a must-win for both teams. Both teams needed to win. The New Orleans needed to prove that they're legit, and they didn't just beat 2 of the lower teams in the league, that they can beat teams on their own level, and they did, and they won very convincingly. And Carolina really needed to win this game to prove that they're not a fraud, and they deserve to be in the within the 8-tier teams, and they unfortunately got their ass eaten out by New Orleans, but that's okay. He can bounce back next week, because next week he has another huge game against the defending champs, New York, who are also not in the B tier anymore. So he's got to step up and kind of win this game next week. Otherwise, if he shows that he can't hang with the top tier teams, then it's going to be very hard for them to convince the man in Vegas that you're worthy of winning a championship. Because to win a championship, you don't just have to beat 2 of the best tier teams. You kind of have to win 4 of them. And if you can't beat 2, then good luck convincing the man in Vegas that you're a championship caliber team. So big week next week for Carolina. Colts. Now I believe they lost. Okay, turns out I'm full of shit, and they won. Okay, so they did beat Jacksonville. This is always a good game. 2 best friends fighting. 2 best friends in real life, and yeah, the Colts have, I think they've come out on top more often than not. I think in the first season, Jacksonville kind of just owned this team, and then ever since then, I think it's been Indianapolis has come out on top. But this team's doing really well right now, really well. I think next week they have a big game. They have a huge game next week. I think their only losses, let me just have a look at their schedule real quick. I'm sure their only losses were against like very strong teams. Okay, so they lost to Miami, and they lost to and they beat Cleveland. So they beat one good team and lost to another. So they split it 50-50 overall. That's fine. That's good. That tells me that you're at least a B tier team. You could even be S tier. But next week is really gonna show if they're A tier team or a B tier team, because they have a big matchup coming up. Washington, they would have loved to continue their momentum, but unfortunately they did lose. Um, the World Chargers got, I can't remember their result for this week, but they did cash in their forfeit victory against Pittsburgh from week 1, so that gave them a win as well. And I can't remember if they won or lost this week. I think they won. I'm pretty sure they won. They did. Yes, they did. They won. I'm super hyped for this team. I think they're gonna do really well. I just have a feeling, just a gut feeling. But the man in Vegas says you gotta prove it. Can't just go off Crimson's gut feeling. So, A tier. We have New York, Cincinnati, and New Orleans moved up to the A tier. Let's go start with Cincinnati. So 3-0 right now, number 1 seed in their conference. At this point last season, they were 3-0, number 1 seed in their conference. So this team has proven that they deserve to be here. Okay, last season there were some questions like, okay, they were last in the division the season before that, so they had the last place schedule, which is, in other words, a very easy schedule. Then they finished first. Now they have a top tier schedule, and they're still 3-0, and they're on top of their conference right now. So this team is a huge threat. I think it is fair to say that they can beat anyone at any time. You cannot sleep on this team anymore. This team is a legit threat. They are an A-tier team. They are a championship caliber team, and they deserve to be here. New York. So we all know that this coach is insane. Won the championship last year. I thought this team had a lot of question marks in it, but they're 3-0, and they've proven me wrong. So they deserve to be here. They can go back to back. They've shown it this season. They can beat anyone. They have a challenge against Carolina, so we'll see how that goes. And then New Orleans have, if we're just looking at in a vacuum, the performances on this season, take out the strength of the opponents, take out everything like that, just look straight up at the performance of the Pokemon and the coach. This has been the best team in the league so far. Their differential is insane. I think the smallest win was either a 4-0 or a 5-0. This team's been dominant. This team's scary as hell. Now, their first 2 weeks, I was like, okay, they did very, very well, but they were against 2 D-tier teams, I believe. But then they faced Carolina, who was a team that I had ranked A, has shown to be a little bit inconsistent this season, coming off an insane performance in week 2, and absolutely throttled them. So, dominant win. This team deserves to be an A tier. We can't sleep on this team. This is a new coach, maybe they're not so good, can't really be a thing anymore. I think this team's legit. Houston, they did get a win. But Tennessee really kind of like put them under the pump here. So I don't know if that means that maybe they're not as good as we thought, or maybe Tennessee was just better than we think. And I'm feeling like it might be Tennessee is maybe just a little bit better than we thought. That's why I moved them up. But still a very dominant and scary team. And then we have Cleveland, still an A-tier team. Next week for them is going to be a big week. That's going to tell us if they're truly an A-tier team, or if they just can't hang with the other top-tier teams and they might drop down. We'll see. Next in the A tier, we have 3 teams: Tampa Bay, San Francisco, and Miami. Not really much to say about Miami. They just kind of did what they were expected to do. Nothing really new to say. Tampa Bay and San Francisco. So these 2 teams, they're just doing what they have to do, and they're just proving that they are an A+ tier team. They're proving to be gigantic threats. They're really, really doing well in their games. These teams are legit scary, and if they were to go against Miami, it would legit be a 50-50. I don't think they'd be favorite over Miami, and I don't think Miami would be favorite over them. These teams are just really, really good right now. So in week 5, I don't think we're actually going to see Tampa Bay versus New Orleans. So we could have 2 5-0 teams in a division to end the season, which would be insane. That would be crazy. Because they're both 3-0 right now and have the best and third best differential in the league, maybe even top two. I can't remember what Cincinnati is, but Cincinnati is in the top three, the differential. So if these two don't fight each other, and I don't think they do if Tampa Bay finish first, because the last team and the first place team will not fight each other. So in week 5, they will not play each other. They will not play each other. So they could both finish 5-0 right now. Here's the standings. I don't know if you can see it because my screen's kind of zoomed in really weird. Yeah. So December Saints 16 differential, Tampa Bay 11, and then Cincinnati is also 11. So this is going to be a crazy finish to this season. So we'll see how that goes. This division is going to be very, very heated. There is and it's going to be very important to win these games because this is the only downside to the new playoff rulings that we have this year, where there is the play-in game. So you don't technically make playoffs until you win the play-in game. So the loser of this division will finish second and will have to play in the play-in game. If they lose the play-in game, there's going to be a 5-0 team who doesn't make playoffs. But just win the play-in game. Win the division, win the play-in game. That's what you got to do. Just do it. It's not that hard. Just do it. Just do it. Just don't tie the differential. That's going to be annoying for me to figure. Imagine if I have to figure out. Imagine if I have to come to a decision of who had the hardest schedule, and then that team gets first place in the division. So the other team has to do the playing game, and then they lose because of my decision. That'd be kind of funny though. I kind of hope that happens actually. That'd be funny. But yeah, this is the rankings going into week 4. Overall, I'm very, very happy with the man in Vegas and his opinions. They have, I think I just leaked my address on the video. I might have to edit that out. Anyway, but yeah, I'm happy with my preseason rankings and how they have held up going into week 4. I think they've been pretty solid. Yeah, I think a lot of big matchups in week 4. I think Houston and Las Vegas play each other. Now that's going to be a huge game because both of these teams haven't had the strongest performance this season. A lot of people could argue that if these coaches weren't top caliber, that they might be in B tier. But they are top 5 coaches. So we'll see how that goes. But this is a must-win team for both. Neither team are winning their division right now. The Colts, if they win their week 4 game, which has already been played, and I didn't look at the result. They played Kansas City. I don't know who won, but they're winning their division right now. If Houston don't win, then they're in a real risk of not winning this division. And it's the exact same for Rose Raiders. They're not winning their division right now either. If they lose, then they're at a huge risk of not winning their division and having to play in the playing game. Both of these teams have shown that they can be beaten this season. Houston almost twice, so we'll see how that goes. But that's going to be the game of the week for week 4. Another big game is Miami and Cleveland, and there was another huge one. I think New York and Carolina, that's a big game as well. And I think Washington have a big opponent as well. So I think they're really going to want to bounce back after that loss. But I hope you enjoyed the rankings videos. I'm going to end it here so it's not too long, and I'll see you in the next one.